Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this man back. He, at one point, was an incredible radio talk show host, who I hope jumps back into the game at some point. He is the son of former President Ronald Reagan. It's Michael Reagan. Michael, how are you? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you again. Where you been?
You know what? I miss you. We got to have you on more often. I know that you're putting out op-eds all the time. Is it Reagan World? Is that what you're doing?
At Reagan World, see my op-ed pieces all the time. I put them out, yeah.
Go and check him out. The new book is called Lessons My Father Taught Me, The Strength, Integrity, and Faith of Ronald Reagan. And I love this. Everybody should go and get it. I float around the YouTube sometimes, Michael, and your dad's videos will come up where he's sitting on Johnny Carson. Not sitting on Johnny Carson, he's on the Tonight Show. And what a great conversation, because I don't care what the topic was. His bottom line was freedom, liberty, less government. Government can never come and help you. Higher taxes will never get you out of a bad economy. And he was just a real great American. And we sort of have forgotten exactly what it was that made the 80s so great under his guidance. Well, am I learning that in the book? I'm also going to learn about your childhood and the lessons that you grew up with, right?
Yeah, I mean, you learn that through him. Like, for instance, right in the first chapter of the book, I talk about learning about America. I'm 8 years old. I'm riding out to the ranch with my dad, and my mom and dad were divorced. He picked me up on Saturday morning with my sister many times. We ride out to the ranch and regale me with the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, all of these songs about all of these great groups, and it get me to ask questions about the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard.
Right.
And that's how I learned about America. And you had the happy-go-lucky Irishman, just happier than heck, who he was, where he was, and he lived in the greatest country in the world. And he just pushed that down. I mean, he didn't push it down, but he just lived it so much that you kind of got it.
He had such a great appreciation just for who we are as Americans, and that's gone by the wayside. But this isn't anything new. Even in your dad's era, even when you were a kid, when I was a kid, we grew up and there was progressivism attempting to permeate, but we never let it. Your dad would never have let that happen. What do you think happened? Why are we here today? What would he do facing the progressive push, this hatred of America that we see today?
And the great thing my dad had was a sense of humor.
Yeah.
There they go again. I mean, he won debates with that line and what have you. But what's really sad, I was speaking to a Polish television station a couple of days ago at the Ranch Center in Santa Barbara,
Yeah.
and talking about it's not just here, it's worldwide. And what's happening is you don't have Ronald Reagan, but you don't have Lech Walesa, Václav Havel, Helmut Kohl. You don't have Lady Thatcher. You don't have Pope John Paul II. You don't have Mikhail Gorbachev. You don't have that cadre of leaders in the world anymore that says, cut this crap out. You know, we're not going to allow these things to happen. We want to have freedom in the world. And you need a leader in the United States of America as at the presidency to be able to lead that charge and bring these people on board to move forward. And so it's not just missing my dad, which we do. And I'm lucky enough to have a father who's loved all around the globe
Yeah.
for what he accomplished and who he was. But the reality is we miss a whole bunch of those people who were there when we needed them to bring freedom, because Poland is reverting back to what it was. America's reverting back to where it was. Germany's reverting back to what it was before Ronald Reagan, before Thatcher, before Pope John Paul, before Mikhail Gorbachev, and all those other great people of that era. And that's what's really sad.
Those are some famous names, and you're right, they were all of the same ilk. And I want to get into in a second why they were all there and why nobody like that exists now. It's Michael Reagan. Go to michaelreagan.com. Lessons My Father Taught Me, The Strength, Integrity, and Faith of Ronald Reagan. I don't think that it's organic. I don't think that we just were in a time in history where that just happened. I think the leadership of your father, the smile of your dad, the fact that he can make a joke, as you said, in a real attempt, not even an attempt, in a real action to thwart these idiots that were trying to come to rise. I think that gave people like Lech Walesa over in Poland the idea that they could. Or that Margaret Thatcher could be as bold as she was, or the other leaders that you mentioned could be who they were. There's sort of no guide now, is there, Michael? There's nobody to turn to say, well, Reagan's got my back, so I can do this now.
That's right. The world looks to the leadership in Washington. They look to the President of the United States for leadership. When we do not have that leadership coming out of Washington, D.C., it allows evil to happen.
Yeah.
Mikhail Gorbachev would have been there. Reagan been there, all these leaders been there. Putin never would have even thought about going into the Ukraine.
Right.
Because everybody would have stood against him. But nobody stood against him. And so he walked on in and said, hey, this is my territory. And he's not going to leave because we ask him to leave. There's no leader that's telling him how to leave. You know, every leader is saying, let's negotiate and give you half of the Ukraine for you to leave. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And that's what's so very sad, that we don't have all of those leaders. And you said michaelreagan.com. I really don't use that so much anymore. ReaganLegacyFoundation.org is my
Got it.
website.
Okay.
And then at Reagan World is my Twitter account. But people need really to study Ronald Reagan. I just had a group at the library the other day, taking them on a tour and looking at the videos of my father and the speeches of my father. And you listen to him, and he could give those same speeches today.
Yes.
And they would make sense to today on what's going on. And at the end of the speech, he always made you feel good. It was always uplifting about America. If you listen to the speeches, he never uses the word I. It's always we.
Right.
We can do this together, not I can do it together. Or the other great line, no telling what a man can accomplish and where he can go if he doesn't worry who gets the credit. Today we live in a world where everybody wants credit. They don't want to share the credit, and therefore we have the problems that we have.
Go to the website, ReaganLegacyFoundation.org, ReaganLegacyFoundation.org. It's Michael Reagan. And also, it's at Reagan World over on Twitter. I don't know. We probably follow each other. If not, I'll make sure I go do that as soon as we're done here. Was your dad the exact same guy that I saw giving those speeches and those news conferences, by the way, back and forth with Sam Donaldson? That stuff was amazing. I mean, he just handled all of it. He just let it roll off his back, and then he gave a great answer. Was he the same guy at home?
Same guy. You know, Sam Donaldson a few years ago came and spoke on the occasion of my dad's birthday at the library, talking about his gratitude and love for Ronald Reagan.
Wasn't that a great relationship?
Oh, it did.
Because Donaldson was hard on him. He wasn't easy on him.
Oh no, but my dad made friends of enemies, not enemies of friends.
Yes.
Look at Mikhail Gorbachev. I mean, the relationship there, ultimately the relationship at the end, was terrific, that relationship. Mikhail Gorbachev sat behind my family at the funeral of my father.
Wow.
My son, I remember turning around and saying, Mikhail Gorbachev is sitting behind us. And I said, that's great.
Yeah.
So again, that's the way it was. Whether it was him speaking to me or him speaking to you, when he gave a speech, he gave it from here.
Yeah.
He didn't give it from anywhere else but here. And that's why it plays today. You will cry in the same spot, you will laugh in the same spot, and you will cheer in the same spot if you listen to my dad's speech today. Listen to A Time for Choosing that he gave back in 1964, and you'll go, oh my God, he could give that tomorrow afternoon.
You know, I just saw a video yesterday, and I'm sure that you're very familiar with this. It was after the assassination attempt. He was at the wall in Berlin, or he's at the gate, and during that speech, a balloon popped, and on a dime, your dad said, "Miss me." You know what I mean? Who else can be? He was just I know he wasn't a regular dude because he was exceptional, but he was like a regular guy. And I think that you're right. I love interviewing people. You're a great interviewer as well. I would love to have spent 2 hours with the guy because I feel like I would have left feeling that much better about this entire country and about my family and myself.
If I could add on to that.
Please.
6 hours after he's off the table after being shot, March 30th, 1981, we all fly back. Our family flies back to Washington. And I tell my father, I say, if you ever put me on another C-130, I'll shoot you. I mean, okay. And he kind of chuckled. But I said, how are you doing? He said, I'm doing fine. You know, yesterday I was shot. Wow. I said, Dad, the world knows you were shot yesterday.
He was filling you in on the news if you hadn't heard.
Yeah. And he said, if you're ever going to get shot, Michael, don't be wearing a new suit.
Wow. I
said, excuse me? He said, it's a brand new suit I was wearing yesterday. And last time I saw that suit, they had cut it off of me. It was in the corner of the hospital room in absolute shreds. That's why I tell you, if you're ever going to get shot, don't be wearing a new suit. And I said, fine, Dad, I'll take that. And he said, the young man who shot me, I said, yes, Hinckley. He said, yes, it was John Hinckley. I said, that's correct. He says, I understand the parents are in the oil business. Yeah. Now remember, this is 6 hours after he's off the table.
Right.
He says, I understand they live in Denver. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you think they have any money? I said, well, Dad, they're in the oil business in Denver. Of course they've got money. You think they'd ever buy me a new suit?
Oh, my God. That's amazing. Come on, Michael.
6 hours after he's off the table.
That is amazing. So the answer to the question is very simply, yes, he was the same guy with you, with your family. as he was in front of a microphone. I mean, that's why when, and you mentioned this earlier, and I really do want to examine this more. Get this book, Lessons My Father Taught Me, The Strength, Integrity, and Faith of Ronald Reagan. It's Michael Reagan. Go to ReaganLegacyFoundation.org. I really want to expand upon how he dealt with, like we just saw 4 years of Trump. I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not denigrating the guy, but I don't think he should have stood there for 2 hours and argued and yelled back and forth at the press corps. They were all writing books as they were doing it. Your dad didn't let that opportunity happen. When they tried to send him some, I'm going to really get you with this question, a real gotcha question, he would turn it around and he would lighten the atmosphere. He would have people who didn't like him as the president, were opposed to him politically, laughing in the press room. And he did them often, and he was so good at it. Did he thrive on that? Did he love that? And did he always have that ability to take a negative and make it sort of a positive for the room?
Look at his life. He turned negatives into positives. He turned lemons into lemonade. He did this all through his life. When he got fired from General Electric Theater back in 1962, because Bobby Kennedy called the head of GE and said, "Get rid of that guy who's speaking ill of my brother."
Wow.
It gives my dad more time. He changes from a Democrat to a Republican based on being fired. He sits down and writes a brand new speech called The Time for Choosing, which launches the career to the governorship and the presidency of the United States of America. He didn't let the negative control his life. He turned it and made it positive in every single way. And it was great to be able to see that and learn from that, to don't let someone else's attitude determine your attitude for the remainder of the day. You determine your attitude, and if you can turn it around and make it positive, it's even better. And the Republican Party would do well to listen to his speeches and listen to him, because Ronald Reagan won because he didn't kick rhinos out of the party. He understood it's the minority party really out there.
Yeah.
You can't afford to start jettisoning people, and you got to have a message that's going to bring Democrats and independents to you, because you will run into people all the time. Democrats say, I disagree with Ronald Reagan's politics, but I liked him.
And they voted for him. I think he's the last Republican that got union support, is he not?
Won the youth vote, union support. And somebody said the other day, Trump said he has more support in the party than Ronald Reagan. I said, yeah, that might be true. But when he wins 49 states, call me.
He won 49 states. And what's funny is he didn't win Minnesota because that's where Mondale was from. And didn't your dad say something to the effect of, well, we gave him that one?
Basically, because I had that conversation with my dad. I said, I think we won Minnesota if you want to go back, but we lost it. And he said, well, weren't you out campaigning? I said, yeah, Dad, 66 airplane rides in 19 states the month of October. Did you go to Minnesota?
Wow.
I said, no, I didn't go to Minnesota. He said, that's why we lost.
There you go.
Gone to Minnesota. Blame me, Dad. It's my fault.
Michael Reagan, author of Lessons My Father Taught Me, The Strength, Integrity, and Faith of Ronald Reagan. Go to ReaganLegacyFoundation.org and go follow Reagan World over on Twitter, right?
And go to Amazon.com for the book also.
Okay, go and get the book there. I've got to ask you how you think, and again, you know him better than any of us ever could have, although we all took ownership of Ronald Reagan because he made us love this country. He really brought back nationalism after Jimmy Carter. But we need that again now. I mean, we've got a guy now in the White House that I think is Jimmy Carter 3.0, and he's just ruining every sort of value and tenet and moral ideology we have in this country. What would your dad do if he were around today? How would he react to this? What we're seeing?
Well, my dad would be in tears for what's happening to the American people, that we're so divided. And he would miss a voice that would truly bring people together in every single way. Remember, he worked with Tip O'Neill to give us the largest tax break in American history.
Yes.
That's a reality. We used to work together. You had Bill Clinton work with Newt Gingrich to give us the first balanced budget in forever. Hasn't been balanced since that period of time. We've lost that, and that's what we've got to find. And we've got to elect people. At the end of the day, who's going to win the general election?
Yeah.
Primaries are one thing, but how do you win the general election? Because it's really important. That's the only way you're going to get into office and what have you. And there's pointing fingers at each other in the Republican Party. Go back to the 11th commandment in the Republican Party. Don't speak ill of another Republican. Yeah. There's enough Democrats out there. Quit yelling at Republicans. Start yelling at the Democrats who are destroying this party bit by bit by bit. There is not a bad Republican. The worst Republican is better than the best Democrat ever thought it'd be.
It's a very, very good point. But you're right. We are calling each other out without a doubt. I'm not a Republican. I'm a conservative. But we are calling each other out left and right when we have so much that we could be calling out that's going wrong, that's being perpetrated by the other side, period. While I have you, Michael, it's been a while since I talked with you. I want everybody to go get this book called Lessons My Father Taught Me by Michael Reagan, ReaganLegacyFoundation.org. Get it over on Amazon. But I got to take this opportunity to ask you about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., although you might have a personal problem because his dad is the one that had a problem with your dad. This guy's saying the right things, man. I mean, this guy's a Democrat, and he's at the border wall in Yuma, Arizona at 2 a.m. He's against these vaccine mandates. He called out Fauci like crazy. He's a closed border guy. He's a guy that doesn't think that males should compete against females. Michael, he's saying the right things. Is he scary for somebody like you and me?
And I think as the Republican nominee for the president of the United States, Robert F. Kennedy might do really well because he's
Right.
saying all the things that Republicans are saying and should in fact say. He's not silly. He's not stupid.
Yeah.
You know, his father wouldn't get the nomination, or his uncle would not get the nomination of the Democrat Party
Well, his uncle would be a
today.
Republican.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so he's saying the right things and he's doing the right thing. And at least he's holding Biden accountable
He is.
for what he's not doing. And maybe this is one person that'll bring him out of the basement, and he's going to have to debate because Kennedy's not going to let him stay in a basement and not debate. Kennedy's going to go after him on every issue, and they're all correct issues. And bravo to him for showing up and doing the right thing when the Democrats stay home, when the Republicans go to the border and say, let's have a press conference down here. There's no Democrats. But Kennedy shows up and calls them all out, which is great.
I really, really appreciate your knowledge. You're very, very wise, Michael. Come back on often. Go and get this book, Lessons My Father Taught Me, The Strength, Integrity, and Faith of Ronald Reagan. Go to ReaganLegacyFoundation.org for more about Ronald Reagan and what Michael's doing. And go to Amazon and get the book now. Michael, come back soon, would you?
Anytime.
I appreciate you. We're back after
Thank you,
this.
my friend.
All right, we're back
Bye-bye.
after this. Stay right here.